morning, everyone, and welcome to this fifth session of the sixth session HTML and CSS course. Am I audible and visible?
So in the last session, we made this part of the website and we started making this website alongside. So today we'll be making this lessons panel and the footer and learning some new skills like iframe and favicon. I won't ruin the surprise for you, so we'll learn more about that later into our session. So let's have a recap of what we did in the previous session and start with this session. So this is the part of the website that we made in the previous session, the header and a part of the main. The lessons is also a part of the main, along with the contact us form. So we made the header and we also learned a few new properties in CSS and the span tab. The properties we learned were list style property, padding property, and float property. So let's go over them last time. So padding property. Padding property is used to add spacing. I'm going to open my editor. So let's open a new file for today. Go to file and click on new text file. Is my screen visible? The VS Code screen?
So, as to not delay the class, I'm going to quicken things up and
I hope it's visible
write the
now.
code really quickly. Till then, you can see the output.
Okay. So first, let's write the basic
always
syntax.
remember not to add period before the tags.
I'm not
Remember
using
to
the
add
shortcut because it has a few errors in indentation.
That was a problem that was encountered in the class, which was later on solved. So let's continue on with that. Also, the codes for the paragraphs and headings have been already written, so we can start with the applying application of CSS.
So let's write a title. Session 5. The problem was I was adding a full stop before H1. Yes. So we were talking about the padding property. So in the padding property, you can add spacing to the direction you specify, like the top, bottom, right, or left. I'll show you how. We'll try it both on text and images. Let's open those files from the desktop. Yeah. As you can see, it's now blue violet. Yes. So let's add a paragraph here to differentiate. Or an image. GSRC. Now SRC is an attribute, source attribute. So its value should be in double quotes. Always remember that. Let's take this image from here. Copy image address. Okay. So if we pasted this, you can try this alongside me, but it's the recap from the previous session. Let me go close all these. It's now appearing here. Let's try floating it. Yes, as you can see, it has now floated or moved to the right, the image. And this is still in the left because by default, the HTML elements are in the left. But if their sizes are too big, they might come in the center a bit. Usually images. Now, we have tried the float property. Let's try the padding property. Now, the padding property also has shortcuts. Like if you add one value here, it will be for all four sides, top, bottom, right, left. There's also for top, right, and left, bottom. So if we add two values here, like 20 pixels and 40 pixels, it will apply like this. This will be for the top and bottom, and this will be for the right and left, or this will be for the right, top, and bottom left. But this is too confusing, and it's always best to tell the computer specifically what you're doing. So it's always best if you write padding hyphen top to specify. Oh, yes. Remember to add a hyphen. There is no space in any property. Let's go with this only for now. As you can see, it has moved a little downwards because it has a bit of spacing above it. 50 pixel spacing or padding above it on top. So that is how the padding and float properties work. Now let's use some list items to go over the list style property once again. Let's go with unordered list because they usually have the disks as the bulletin. You can also use list items by themselves using the li tag. Now li, let's create a shopping list, a vegetable list. Yes, so tomato, turnip, caps. I think this much is enough. Let's save this. As you can see, they're unordered and the bulletin is small circles. So dot li, not dot li, list style let's go with circles. As you can see, by default it is disk, which are circles that are already filled. Now these are some blank circles. You can also change it to square. But if you think that the list style or the bulleting style is very disturbing and not beautiful, you can change it to none. That's what we have done in the header. As you can see, now there's no bulleting or list before it. So that's how the list style, padding property, and float properties work. Now we also learned about the span tag. So let's write a bit of paragraph. This is a span paragraph. Now let's put this in span. There are many very complicated and advanced uses of span. So we are going to go with a very simple usage. We are going to use it to separate text. We are going to learn about the more advanced usages later on. Now this much is spanned. It still comes in the paragraph, but it is spanned. I'll show you what it does. So let's see if it has come. Yeah, it has come. Now, because of adding the span tag, there is no real change to it. But let's try here. Span is a tag, no full stop for it. Yes. So, color red. As you can see, as we spanned this part of the paragraph using the span tag and we went to CSS, we could now separate it from the whole paragraph and just color this small part of it red. That is the basic use we'll be using this span tag for. I have used it here as well. I span this full stop to change the color of it separately. And padding has been used here as well. And these all have been floated here towards the left. Yes, that is pretty much the recap of the previous session. Let's comment all of this code so as to not get confused. Yes, so let's comment it. Remember to put the closing tag or anything you write below that will be commented. So let's save this. Let's save the CSS file. Yes. As you can see, nothing is appearing here because all of our code has been commented. I'll share the code in the notes later on. First, let's make the website in the class. So this is the part of the website that we'll be making today. We are done with the recap of the previous session. So this was a part of the main. Now there's another part of the main. This is the website and we made till here. So let's learn to code. Now below that, the lessons panel is also a part of the main. And we are going to continue on with the main and create the full footer. You might be wondering how we'll create this contact us form later on, as the footer is below it, but we'll be making the footer before the contact us form. This is because the code you write first will appear first on the screen, because the computer reads that code first and thus displays it first. So to do this, we'll just write the code for the contact form above the code for the footer. It's as simple as that. So this is the previous session's code. I have shared the notes with you, so you can use this if you have missed any code. The CSS is right here and the HTML code is right here. So this is what we made in the last session, as I just showed you. So let's learn a bit before starting with the website today. So I just gave you a recap of the padding property. So I'll give it to you in a little detail now. So let me add this here, H1. Now, yes, so padding. Now, as I said, you can add the padding shorthand by simply writing one single value while simply inputting one single value, 60 pixels. Oh, we have not saved the HTML file. We have put nothing here. As you can see, it is 60 pixels below and there is also 60 pixels down here. If you add an element below this, then you will realize. And it is 60 pixels away from the left as well. So that's pretty much how padding works. Now there's also another property called margin. It does pretty much the same thing, but there is one very important factor that just divides these two properties. There's a huge difference between these two. And someone had a doubt of when we use background color, why did it go for the paragraph, for the whole file, for the whole place? Now, I told you that we'll be learning about the box model concept. And this is all about the box model concept. Okay, let's inspect this page first. As you can see here, something like this is coming here. This is the box model and it's used almost everywhere, not almost everywhere, just everywhere on every website. Now this box model is a very important concept. So there are 4 parts to it. I have a more detailed image here. So as you can see, the same here and here. So inside this is the content. Above that is the spacing or the padding that you add, and above that is the border that separates that HTML element from every other HTML element. But above that is another type of spacing called margin. But what is the difference between padding and margin? That is what we learn through the box model concept. So the margin property, it's just like the padding property. Can I remove this code? We have done that in the previous session and I'm getting a little confused myself. This code is available in the previous session's notes, so you can see that there. Now, as you can see, we have added the padding. Let's now use another different element, H2. Welcome to this session. Okay, let's save this. H2 margin. Margin 60 pixels. So as you can see this is 60 pixels below because it has 60 pixels padding for all sides. And also there is another spacing of 60 pixels above here till about here because we have added the margin. As you can see, they do pretty much the same thing because they are both adding or creating space in between the HTML elements. But now we learn the box model concept more thoroughly to know what's the difference. As you can see now, this is the box model of of every HTML element. Inspect, and you can see it here. Now, this is the content for the HTML elements, the padding, the border, and the margin. Now, as you can see, there's a border between the padding and the margin. Consider every HTML element like a box. So every content or everything that is kept inside the box is its content. Now the space inside the box around the content is the padding. You might take a box, put a small stone just in between it. That is that box content. Now, if the box is very big, there will be space around. That will be the padding. Now, after you close the box, consider the box as a border, the sides of the box as a border. Now, outside that border, outside that box, all the space that is there, the outer space is the margin. So margin is used to add space outside the element and padding is used to add space inside the element's box. It may be a bit confusing to do this, to understand how you can put space outside and inside. So I'll show you. So yeah, now H1. Let's first input background color. Yes. Let's go with yellow so that the text is easily visible. So as you can see, I removed the padding, thus this is happening. Now someone asked why this is still here. Now we'll learn about this later on, but there are two types of elements in HTML as well. This is a bit advanced and too hard to understand, but as you go on and on learning HTML, it will be easier. So there are two types of elements, inline and block elements. So some elements cover all the space in their single line, and some elements only take up as much space as required. And paragraph or headings are one of the elements that take up all the space that is there in the line. They don't leave any space. But if we float an image here, it might appear. Now it's only till here. Just change the height. You'll understand this better with classes. So I'll add a class. I'll divide a class. I'll just go with heading. Inside this, I'll copy this. I'm using the Control X shortcut. So don't get confused. Save. I've saved this. Now heading. Save this. 1 minute. It's the same because the H1 is in the heading. Now height. As you can see now, as it's 100 pixels, it'll go down till here. Now let's divide another class for the heading 2. Just write box model. I can't find any other name. Yes. I'm cutting this using Control X. Don't get confused, please. Yes. Save. Let's see if it's still appearing. It's still there. Now, dot box model. Background color. Let's go with something that's not like yellow. Let's go with red. Now height. So let's change the height to 100 pixels as well. Save. As you can see, this is the border that separates this from this. Now, margin top 3 centimeters. Oh, I added centimeters accidentally. Pixels. Centimeters is very big. I advise always using pixels because as pixels are very small, you actually have the length, breadth, all the measurements in control, in the palm of your hand. Yeah, as you can see, the margin is creating space. The margin is creating space outside the boundary. The boundary was right. Now this is the boundary and the margin was creating space outside of it. Yes. Now the box model concept is going to help you a lot while you're making very big websites. It's going to help you with arranging images and all that. So always keep in mind about the margin and the padding. To remember this well and to remember the box model well, just remember this example I told you about. The box one with the stone in between. I'll tell it to you again and then we'll go on with a new styling properties. Yes. So consider this box in my hand. I keep it on a table. Now this is a very big box. So inside it, I keep a very small stone in the center. Now that is the content of the box. Now around that stone, the space around that stone that is inside the box is the padding. Now the box's sides. The box is sized as it's a 3D thing, 3-dimensional box. So it will have sides, right? It will be a cube. Let's consider the box a cube. So it will have sides. So that will be the border that separates the box and the contents of the box from the outside world. And now leave it in an empty room or leave it in any room with a little space around it outside the box. Now that will be the margin. Now border property. Someone also asked me how to outline just a bit and not change the whole background color. So we'll be learning that today in outline property. First, let's get on with border property. Yes.
Ma'am, just to confirm whether my understanding is right, we have created two boxes right now. One was that first one in the yellow color and the red color. They were two separate boxes, right?
Yes.
And the space between them, which we increased by 100 pixels or so, that was the margin.
Yes.
Okay.
And the space that was already there before we added the margin was the boundary that separated both of them.
Boundary was the sideline where the color ended was the boundary, right?
Yes. 1 second. Now, this right here is the boundary. When there was the background color is yellow, there was a little space in between these two elements, these two boxes. That was the boundary that separated these two.
Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
After learning these new skills, we'll be commenting them because we'll start making the website, the new part of the website that we learned with these skills. Now, the border property. The border property is used to add a border. Now it has 3 values. First, let's add a new element, paragraph element. This element has a border. Now, let's save this. So, let's go here. As it's a tab, always remember to not put a full stop before it. That is the problem that occurred at the beginning of this session. Now, inside this, also, just like padding and margin, you can specify where you want the border. like border, top, border, bottom, like that. We'll be adding a border, bottom. Now there are three values. As you can see here, it has three values which tell its width, how wide it will be, or how thin it will be, the width. And you can specify the style. It will be solid, something like that. And you can specify the color. Now we'll go with solid for now. So go with 5 pixels. Solid and color. Let's go with black, simply black. As you can see, this border of 5 pixels has appeared below at the bottom of the paragraph element. Bottom, bottom. Yes. I'll show you some uses of this border in the website as well. As you can see, now this is 1 centimeter thick border. Now this is the website. As you can see here, below the lessons, there is a very thin border here in gray. And we'll be making that today. So this is the border. The lessons is a heading 3 and below it comes a border for which he'll be using border bottom property. Yes. So now outline. Outline. Let's add a heading 3. There's already a heading 1 and 2. Heading 3. This is outline. Now save this. H3. Outline. Now there are many styles in which you can outline. Let's go with 30 pixels. And now a solid was also a style. Let's go with, let's just use dotted for now. And red. That is very big. Let's go with 3 pixels. Yes, as you can see now, this is outlined and the width of the outline is 3 pixels. Now the border came below it as we used border bottom. Now this is outlined. I hope that your doubt is clear. Someone asked me how to outline. So yeah, this is how you outline. Now this is solid and not dotted. And I also said once before that you can add multiple values to one single property. This is now dashed. It's a bit wider than simple dots. Now, this was outline property. Now we have learned all the skills we need to make the part of the website that we'll be making today. That will be this lessons panel and this. So let's get on with it. I'll be commenting this code so as to not get confused. Yes. File save. Now, this lessons is a part of the main, as I said. So we have already created a main class in which we created this. Using a different class. So now we'll be creating another class inside the main. Wait 1 minute if you will. So this is the code for what we created in the last session. We'll be copying it so that the website appears below it only. Control C. And we'll start making our today's website below this. Now, see, as you can see, what we made in the previous session has appeared here. I'll send the codes in chat so that you can copy it in your current file, or you can continue in previous classes file as well. HTML code. If there is any issue with the CSS or HTML code with the spacing, you can add or edit this spacing later on. It's best if you continue on with your code from the last session. Yes. So now this is the main class that we have already created. Now inside that, we created another category called main headings. Now there are two more things in main. The lessons and the contact form. And these three are different categories entirely. The headings, the lessons, and the contact form. But they all come in the main content. So we created one main class called main, and inside that, we'll create three more classes separately for this heading, the lessons, and the form. We'll create for the form later on, and we have already created for the headings. Now, let's create for the lessons. And today we'll be creating the header below the contact us form. Also, the footer, sorry. Yeah, so as I said before, the computer, the first code that the computer reads, it'll display that first. So we have to write the code for the contact form later on before the code for the footer. So the contact form will appear before and the footer will appear later below it. Yes. So let's start. Inside the main, divide another class. I have made this image to tell you the layout of the different classes that you have to make. This is the main. Inside that, the lessons class, the contents class. Yes. So contents. Now inside that, there's two things inside these contents: the lessons title and the contents item. So we'll divide two more classes. Yes. So div class. Always remember also another thing, attributes always come in the opening tag. Now class contents title. Remember to put either a hyphen or an underscore. never add a space in any file or class name. Contents item. Now, these are the main classes for the contents for this. Now, contents title H3, heading 3. Now, the contents title is a heading size 3. So, we'll go with heading 3 and the simple text is lessons. Are there any doubts till now? You can tell me in the chat. Okay, yes. Now, lessons. As you can see, it's very small compared to here. So we'll be adding a little CSS. This is the main division, which we just did. And also there is some CSS that we can add to this as well. We can add the margin and the height. I've kept the details here so that we know what pixels, how many pixels we have to add. Because it will be hard if you go on by hunch. Basically. So this is the CSS for what we did in the previous session. Let's start on a new line. The lessons or the contents is a class. Let's go with lessons because it seems more suitable. You can keep the class name as whatever you want. Yeah. Listen. So height, as I showed you, if you add background color, for however long the height is, it will go down till then. Sorry. Yeah. Height and margin. Now, if you just add the margin, it will be for all 4 sides, top, bottom, right, and left. So we have to add the margin for top. Because we'll separate the lessons from this. See, the margin. It might seem a little different here and here. The size of the text is different. Now lessons. Height is 500 pixels till here. And there's margin on top here. Now everything, this whole thing comes inside the lessons. This is the lessons title and this is the items. These are the items. But still, all of this comes inside one single class, the lessons. So the margin will not be on top of the items or the title. It will be on top of the entire element box, which is the class. It will be here. Now, height is 500 pixels and margin on top is 100 pixels. I'll be sending the measurements here. Lessons class. Yes. send. Save this and see what happens. It's here now. And it's a little below now. And this hole has appeared. Now this all is 500 pixels and it is the height of the entire box or container of the class. Now, inside the lessons, there's the lesson title. As it's very small, we might need to add some CSS to it, like change the height of the lesson. Now the lesson title is only a size 3 heading. That is all that comes in the lesson title class, as you can see here. Now this is a CSS for it. I have kept it here to know the exact color codes and all. Now, I just told you about borders. To add a border, we'll use the border property. There's a border at the bottom this. So we'll use border property, border bottom property, specify bottom. There's also padding and margin at the bottom of the lesson title to separate it from the lesson items right here. Yes. You made the lessons item. Let's first write the CSS for it before going on with the lessons items. Let's write the CSS for lessons title so as to not get confused. Yes. So lessons title. Now, first of all, we'll be creating the border at the bottom, which is right here. Border, bottom. Now there are 3 values for the border: the color, the width, and the type of border. So first let's add the width. See what the width is for this. It's 2 pixels. You can add 3 pixels as well to make it a little more visible. 3 pixels. Now our border is solid. It's not dashed or grouped. You can also use the same properties for the outline as well as with the border. Now let's see dotted. And let's use a color. I have the color code here. I'll send it. Color code for border. You can use any color you want, but if you want to use this color, then this is the color code. This is the color. It's grayish. Save. As you can see, a thin border has appeared here. It's not visible much because it's gray. We can use blue as well. Yes. I'm sorry for that. Now, let's use aquamarine. It looks a little better. So yeah, this is dotted. Now you can use dotted, dashed, all this with borders as well. Dashed. This is how easy CSS and HTML is. As you can see now, dashes have appeared here. Hyphens have appeared. Now, let's go with the simple one, solid, because we want to keep it as simple as possible. Yes. So as you can see, you can also use aquamarine. Just write aquamarine. The editor you're using will recognize it. If you're using VS Code, it will definitely recognize it. If you're still using Notepad, it will appear. So as you can see, it's still very small compared to all of this, compared to how big it is here. We'll be using these 2 windows to compare and add the CSS. Now, let's at the font size now. Font size. You can also note that this is for the H3. Font size. The exact font size here is 28 pixels in this. You can use nearly till 30 pixels. That will look good. But if you use a bigger size, it will pretty much look very bad. Now, as you can see, it's a bit bigger now. Let's go with 30 or 35 pixels. We don't want it to be entirely invisible. Save. Now, as you can see, it's a bit bigger. It's not a heading. It's a heading, but we don't want it to be a heading. We don't want to compare it to these two headings, so we'll not make it much big. Now there's padding at the bottom, 15 pixels. And then there's margin at the bottom. So what the padding will do is, the padding is for inside the box. Now the border comes at the very below the box, as you saw in the box model right here. This is the border. So the border will go below the padding, and the padding will create space between the border and the heading size 3. That is basically what the padding will do. And the margin will be for the space outside the border. It is easier to understand the concept of padding and margin, the difference between them, after using borders to separate both of them. Now, let's go with that. Let's create a little padding at the bottom. We wanted the padding to be very less, so we'll go with 15 pixels. As you can see, the border in the box model comes after the padding. So it does not, the padding does not appear below the border. It appears inside the border, between the content and the border. That's pretty much what the padding does. Now, margin. Well, the margin is used to add space outside the border, outside the content. This is pretty much the best way to know the difference between margins and padding. Now, margin bottom 50 pixels. Now, 50 pixels space has appeared here. Now, whatever you write or whatever image you add below this, that will come below the 50 pixels margin that we have added. Now, that is pretty much all the CSS we require for the lesson time, the 4 lines. Now, as you can see here, there are 4 images below the border. The border color is different. Now, let's add these 4 images first. Now, as you can see below each and every image, there's a small paragraph here. So to do this, in simple HTML, we'll first add one image, then add the paragraph for that, and add another image and add the paragraph for that. I'll share you these images later. You can use any image you want right now, or you can use the logos, for which I'll send the link. I'll send the links of the logos. I've opened the 4 logos. Yes. Copy image address. HTML image. CSS logo. CSS image. Let's go over this. like here. SAS logo. Now there are two also, don't get confused. There are two programming languages called SAS. This SAS with an extra S at the end is like CSS. It's an alternative for CSS. Now JavaScript. Let's use this. Copy image address. Java script logo. Now this is the JavaScript logo. I've sent the images for 4 images you can use instead. I'll also be using these images only to show you or direct you. Now, let's start. We have created the lessons item class here. Now we'll add these images and the paragraphs inside this. IMG. Let's add IMG tags. 4 IMG tags here. And let's add paragraph tags below each. Now, in the first image, source, let's add the HTML image. Paragraph HTML. To know which image to add here, we'll first add the paragraphs, HTML, CSS, SAS, and JavaScript. JavaScript. In JavaScript, the J and S are capital. SRC, the codes for the images, the links for the images are there in the chat. I'm copying them. CSS. Yes. For SAS. Please try this alongside me. And JavaScript. SRC equals to let's save this. As you can see, HTML is appeared here and the paragraph HTML is appeared here. CSS logo, CSS, SAS, and JavaScript. It looks a little bad here. We can use a different image. We'll change the image later. It's not that important. Now, the images have appeared, but they are very big. So we'll have to first change the height. Now, this is the basic layout. The image links and the text below. Now, we need to add CSS. First, we'll add the CSS for the images, and then we'll add the CSS for the lessons items. Now, I have not added any CSS here for the size, the height, and width, because the images that I used already had fixed width and height, but we'll be using height and width properties for these images because these are from Google and their sizes are entirely different. Now, let's first add the CSS for the lesson items. Lessons item. Lessons item. Now, CSS for this is first we'll float all of these to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Float left. The CSS might not happen or right now. You'll notice this later on. As you can see, it's not happening right now. It will happen when we add more CSS to it. Now, the margin on the right. As you can see here, these are the images. So this is the margin on the right. We add a margin on the right here to separate the 4 images. Margin right. See how much margin I've added? It's 40 pixels. I'll send. First, let me change the size and then I'll send. Save. Change the height and width. This lesson item, lessons item img. As you can see, now all of this is coming from the left. Now these two aren't affected because they are too big. Let's change the height and the width. Now the height, let's change it to 50 pixels. Let's change it to 100 pixels for now. We need them to be perfect squares. So 100 pixels both. As you can see, it has appeared like this now. They are very small. So we'll change it to 200 pixels. This is big enough. Now we have added the CSS for the images. Now we need to add the CSS for the paragraphs. Let's do that. Now, dot lessons item paragraph. Now, if the code does not work or something doesn't happens as it should, that maybe because we have used different images. So after I provide you with the right images, you can try the code again. First, let's change the font size to 24 pixels and the margin on top, the margin that separates the images from the paragraph that is below them, that margin. So font size 24 pixels and margin top. You can add how many pixels, however many pixels you want. I'll be adding 30 pixels based on the other website. File, save. Reload. Now, it's not appearing just like this because we have used different images of different sizes. So let's see. We've added the same CSS, but the problem is there's a problem because the images are not the same. They're not of the same dimensions. Yes, so we can change that in the next class. Yes, we can change that in the next class after I've given you the images. Right now, this is all we can do with these images for this file. So now let's create the footer. We can try something else. You can try this. If it does not work, the problem is with the images. Try this code again at home after I provide you with the images in the notes. Now, let's create the footer below it. Let's first create a footer class. Now, also pay attention to the div tags, the closing div tags, and make sure you don't end up writing your code in the wrong div tag. Now, the footer tag is not inside the main tag. The main is another class and the footer comes below it, like the header, main, and footer. So let's change the footer. Let's divide a class for the footer outside the main. Div class footer. Also, don't use capitals in your class names because that might be very confusing. Now for the footer. In the footer, there's simply a title, the text, this background color, and there are different images. Now, these different images are for the footer social. That's the class I'll be using, the class name I'll be using. So the footer. This is the footer title or the footer logo, as you may call it. And these are the different images. Now, I have taught you how to insert links into images. So what I've done in the footer is I have written the title on one side. I've used float properties. If you use float left and float right together, it will appear side by side on the left and right side of the screen. Now, I have inserted a few images here. I've set their length and width. I've set their height and width. Now, I've inserted a few images here, the main social websites everybody uses nearly. LinkedIn, Quora, Medium, Insta, Twitter, etc. Now, this I'll add my profile links in this call, and you can add yours later on. So we'll just insert the images for now, and you can insert the links for your social profiles later on. So let's get started. This is the footer title. Now this whole is a footer. Let's create a basic layout. This whole is a footer, and there's one footer title, and these are the images. So inside the footer, there are two other things. We have created the footer class. We have created the footer class. We'll divide two more classes. Also, the images I've used are from Google, so you can all use it. So I'll send the links for the images in the chat one by one. Div class. Now, first will be footer. I'll be using logo because I have used header logo as well, so as to avoid confusion. Footer logo, and then footer social for the social media accounts. Yes, let's save this. Now, inside the footer logo, there's a heading 3 in which I have written my name. Now, you can write your name there. You can write your name, and I'm sure you can do that live. So you can do that right now. My name has appeared here. First, as we have created the footer box container, let's add CSS to the entire footer, and then we'll add CSS to the footer logo. Then we'll start with the footer social. So for the footer, there is some basic CSS. We have added the background color, this blue, dark blue color, and then we have changed the color to white. Now, if you're changing the color to white, now the color property is used only for text. So if you're changing the color, the computer will recognize it's for the text inside the footer. So even if you add color here, all the text inside the footer will automatically be white. Now the height for the footer is 120 pixels and the padding is 10 pixels. As you can see here, only one value has been added for the pixel. So that will be there for all the four sides. See, here, here is padding here as well. Let's get on with it. Let's first change the background color and the color of the text. Dot footer because it is a class. Any doubts till now? Please tell me the chat if there are any doubts. Are there any doubts? Well, I guess not. Okay. Thank you, Yash. Now, dot footer. Now, inside footer, we'll first add the background color. Now, the background color, I have the color code, so I'll give you the color code. It's not blue, it's a different shade of blue. I don't exactly know the name of. It's only the color code that I have, so please use the color code. If you want to use any other color, you are free to. Now, color code. Yes, I've sent the color code. This is the color. Now the color for the text. So simply color. Now white is hashtag FFF. That is white. Now the height and padding. The height for this whole footer is 120 pixels. You can change the height, but then you will have to change the padding for the footer title, because I have added a little padding on top and bottom of this to make it appear in the middle or here where I want it. So if you change the size, you'll have to change the measurements to make align it in the middle. That will be the problem, nothing else. Padding 10 pixels. So see. Now this is the footer. We'll be changing the height of the footer later on after adding all the elements. Now we've made the footer logo. So let's add a bit of CSS to the footer logo. Now footer logo. Now the CSS for the footer logo is this. As its font, it's simple text. We'll first change the font size. I have kept it as 36 pixels here. You can change it ranging in anything between 35 and 40 pixels. Now 36 pixels. Now we float it to the left so that it comes here, and the other images will float them to the right so that they come here. So float left. Then we'll add the padding. We'll add 30 pixels and 40 pixels. Like this, we'll give two values. And it will be shorthand for top and bottom and left and right. So let's float it to the left first. And then let's add the padding. 30 pixels and 40 pixels. You'll notice what the pixels, which pixels are what padding. Yes, as you can see here, it's here now. So you'll have to change the height of the footer because it's very small. Change it to 250 pixels. I hope that's big enough. So that is very big. It has appeared a bit below. Now, as this is 250 pixels, let's change it to 40 pixels. Now, out of the length, we are going to have to do some calculations now. Out of this 250 pixels, the 40 pixels is the header footer logo only. Now, so outside the 40 pixels, 250 minus 40, there's 210 pixels left. So if we want to make it, align it in the center, we are going to have to divide 210 pixels. Now 210 pixels, out of that, half pixels will come above and half pixels will come below so that it appears in the center. So we are going to have to divide 210 by 2. That is 105. So 105. Yeah, that's 105. Let's try this. Yeah. I don't think the color has appeared till here. This is the height, but the background color has not appeared. The background color has not appeared till 250 pixels. So if we don't add any other element, it will not appear. Now let's add the images. The class will be a bit long today because we had a short delay because the file was not working in the starting of the class. So it will be a bit longer today. Yes. This is a code. Now in the footer social, we'll add the images. I have the images link right here. Now, I'll be providing the links for all the images that I have used here. You can only use some of the websites if you wish to. It's going to take a minute. Spotify. I've sent the image tags. I'll simply send all of this. You can replace my social media accounts links with yours. I'll simply send all of this. So I'm simply sending all the tags. You just have to remove, you just have to replace the href values with yours, because in the href, the links are to my accounts. So you can change it to yours. Let me save this first. I'll be copying the whole class. I'm sending it in parts because Zoom is not allowing me to send this big a message. So I've sent till Pinterest. No, I'm sending Medium. Yes. I've sent all. I'll be copying these codes only because my websites are the same. Yes. You can change the href, the value of href attribute later on with your websites. Right now, if you wish, you can do that right now too, but it's best if you pay attention to the class right now. Now, save. This is our website. Now, these images have appeared here. We are going to add a little CSS to it now to control the size. So the CSS for this is right here. Put a social img. First of all, we'll float them to the right. Dot footer social img, because we are adding it to the images. Now first we'll float them to the right. Might not see this changes much here because they are very big for right now. Now after float right, we add the padding 40 pixels and 10 pixels for top, bottom, and right, left. Then we add the width and height for all images so that they become small, they fit. Now padding 30 pixels and 40 pixels. Height 50 pixels and width 50 pixels. Because we want them to be squares. As you can see here, it's coming like this. So you can lessen some measurements like the padding to make them all fit. As you can see, they're not now fitting. Change the padding a little. Yes. Now, let's remove a bit of the padding for the footer logo so that it appears right next to the logos. There you go. You have now made the footer. We have changed a bit of the padding and measurements, so it looks a little different. Let's change the font size. Yes, now it looks better. As you can see, we have made the part of the website that we had to make for today. We have made the header, not the header, the footer. We have made the footer and the lessons panel. Now, as I told you at the start of the class, there are some extra skills that I want to tell you, to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to add favicons and how to use iframes. This is very exciting, to be honest. Now, what are favicons? Favicons are the images that now this is a browser and we have opened the tab, the file. Now this is the file. You can see it as a tab in this web browser. Now next to the name of the file, there's this small logo. That is the favicon. And you know what? You can actually change it. Now to do that, you have to link favicons. We use the link tag, just like we used to link a CSS file to the HTML file to add the favicon. I'm going to show you how. Now first, you link in the head tag. Inside the head, first let's write link. Now it's the same syntax. We use rel and href. Now like here, rel is used to tell what it is. Here rel is used to tell that it is a CSS file. It's a style sheet. Here rel will be used to tell that it is an icon, so that it's a favicon. so that the computer understands that we are using this as a favicon. So icon. Now href. I'm going to be using this logo only. Copy image address. You can use any image you want. Save. As you can see here, now this logo has appeared here. The image that we added. Now that is a favicon and that is how you change it. The syntax for the favicon is just like the syntax for adding or linking a CSS file to an HTML file. We link an image to the HTML file and tell the computer using rel attribute that it is an icon. So you use it as a favicon. As simple as that. Now that is how you add a favicon. As you can see here. Now we'll be learning about iframes. Iframes are used, an HTML iframe is used to display a web page inside another web page. So we'll be able to display one web page inside another web page. Let's try to display this web page inside this. But remember, both the web pages should be in the same folder. And if one of them has a CSS file linked to it, that CSS file should be linked, should be in the same folder as well for the CSS to apply. I'll show you what I mean. First, this file is this. And the file we are writing in right now is on the desktop, is in the desktop. So to use this iframe, first we write the code and then I'll go on explaining. Now iframe has a tag of its own. We are going to add this file. We are going to add this file into this file. You can create another HTML file, write a few codes in it, like a few headings or something later on. But I'll show you what happens right now. Now, first of all, I'll add this file. We'll copy this file to the folder of this file. This is the file we're coding in right now. This file is in the desktop. So I'll go to desktop and it has a CSS file linked to it. So I'll go here and I'm going to copy both of these files using Control-C. Now, the file that I want to insert this file in is this. And this file is located inside this folder right here. This is the file. So we'll copy this. See if anything has changed here. No, we have copied it, not cut it. Now, we'll be going to that website's code. Let me open that website. Open file. Yes, so this is the website. Website 1 HTML basic. This is the file. This is the file for this website. Now we want to insert something into this website. So we'll go at the end of it. Or wherever you want to insert, I'll go at the end of it. Now we use the iframe tag. Now iframe, now every attribute comes in the opening tag, as I taught you. So iframe. Now iframe does not use href, it uses src. So source. Then after source, there's title. Now there's no use for title, but you can just add the title if you want to tell the to show the user, or if someone's viewing your website, to tell the viewer what the iframe is about, what the website or web page is about. Now, sometimes I'll show you what happens without specifying the width, height and width. Now, I'll add session 5 here. Now let me add the source. As they're in the same folder, we're going to just write the name, session_5.html, as you can see here. Save. This is the file we have inserted into. Now, as you can see, it's not fitting here entirely. So that's why we use height and width. Also, the website might not appear as it looks usually because it depends on the screen size. If you're opening this website on a mobile, it look entirely different because of the size of the mobile screen. Now, the size for all of this, the padding and all is according to my laptop screen, the size of my laptop screen. So for the width and height, we might not be able to add specific width and height. .72.82. Six 36.89. See if you're doing it right. If it's not right, we'll exchange the values of the width and height. Oh, it's like mobile screen now. Yeah, so as you can see, it's not looking nice because of the screen size. Changing the screen size, it's a bit advanced. And it is very hard to master in a very short amount of time. So first we'll have to master the basics. Only then can we learn about RWD. It's called RWD, Responsive Web Design. So let's just take a hunch and change the width to 2000 and height to 2000, 3000. If there's any extra space, it'll just be blank. As you can see, this is the whole website. It's not appearing here. We have increased the width a lot. But this is basically it. Now that is how you add an iframe and change or specify its width and height. We're going to remove this. Now that was just to tell you. You will get the code as you can see here in the notes. Now, the last thing we'll be learning today before ending this session is about HTML entities and symbols. Now, there are some symbols which already have a meaning in HTML files, like the greater than and smaller sign. The computer may mistake them for the tags, the opening tag and the closing tag. That's why they have special symbols or special keywords to print them. As I've taught you, and LT semicolon is for lesser than, and GT semicolons for greater than signs. Just like that, double quotation mark. The computer might mistake that for the value of an attribute because, let me show you here. In a new line. So these are usually the values for attributes, right? Like class equals to this. So the computer might mistake them when you're printing them as the value of attributes. Therefore, you cannot print them easily. So for that as well, there's sign and QUOT for quotation. As you can see, this is the double quotation. Yes. Now, single quotation mark is also called apostrophe. So for that, we use and sign for apostrophe. Yeah, or apostrophe. And then for many different currency signs like cent, pound, yen, euro, etc., we use, I'll first write all of these together and then we'll see them all at once. Cent, pound, yen, euro. Their keywords are simply and. Also, they start with and end with semicolon. The between part is the keyword. So it's simply the currency name. We'll try 2 or 3 currency. Yen. And let's go with copyright. Copy. You can practice the rest of them later on by yourself after you get the notes. As you can see here, you can see these double quotes, single quotes, the cent sign, yen sign, and copyright sign. Now, these are called HTML symbols. There are many. These are just a few basic ones that I have listed here. You can practice them later on. We also use these for symbols that we can't find on our keyboards, like also the currency symbols. There's one main currency symbol that you can find by typing Shift 4, the dollar sign. Other than that, it's very hard to find another currency symbol. So for this, all we use this. Now, are there any doubts? Are there any doubts? If anybody has any doubts, you can tell me in the chat, or else we can end the session. Any feedback?
Thank you, ma'am. This was pretty long as well as dense session. It will take some time for us to practice.
Yes.
But it was kind of a completion phase we can say we are now in. We have built our entire website.
Yes. Thank you. If there are no doubts. Thank you, Yash. If there are no doubts or feedback left, I'll stop recording and let's end this session. Thank you for joining and please join the next session. You're welcome, Ryan.